My company patented my idea and put 3 other people's names on it. Mine wasn't one of them. My name is Diana. I am an engineer. And for 2 years, I developed a process improvement in my own time and on my own initiative. A genuinely valuable innovation that would eventually save the company millions of dollars a year. I brought it to my department, excited, believing I was contributing something important. My manager was enthusiastic. The company moved to patent it. And when the patent was filed, it listed 3 inventors. My manager, a senior director, and a colleague who had, at most, attended 2 meetings about it. Not me, the person who actually invented it. When I asked about the omission, I was told it was a complicated situation involving how credit works at this level. I was told I should be proud to have contributed to a team effort. I smiled. I said I understood. What none of them knew was that inventions leave a trail. And I had been documenting mine meticulously from the very first day, long before the company ever saw it. This is the story of what happens when a company steals an invention from the one person methodical enough to have proven, beyond any doubt, that it was hers. To understand this story, you have to understand how I work, because my nature is the entire reason this story has the ending it does. I am, by temperament, a documenter. Not out of suspicion, out of discipline. It's simply how my mind works. When I develop something, I keep records. Dated notebooks. Version histories. Notes on every experiment, every iteration, every dead end and breakthrough. I have done this my entire career, long before I had any reason to distrust anyone. It is just who I am. The innovation began as a frustration. In my daily work, I kept running into an inefficiency, a process that was slow, wasteful, and expensive, that everyone accepted as simply the way things were done. It bothered me, and in my own time, mostly outside of work hours, I began trying to solve it. It took 2 years. 2 years of tinkering, testing, refining. I worked on it evenings and weekends, driven by the pure engineer's satisfaction of solving a hard problem. I documented every step, as I always do, not because I anticipated theft, but because that is how I have always worked. Dated entries, detailed technical notes, a complete, time-stamped record of the entire development, from first concept to working solution. I was not trying to protect myself. I was simply being myself. That distinction matters, because it means my documentation was genuine, contemporaneous, and complete. Not something assembled after the fact to build a case, but the actual real-time record of a genuine invention, created as it happened. When I finally had a working solution, something I could prove would dramatically improve the process and save significant money, I was proud. And I did what I thought you were supposed to do. I brought it to my company. That was the moment I handed them both my invention and, though I didn't know it yet, the beginning of my betrayal. My manager, a man named Robert, was immediately enthusiastic when I presented my innovation. Perhaps too enthusiastic in retrospect. He saw its value instantly, the cost savings, the competitive advantage, the impressiveness of it. He took it up the chain. A senior director named Charles became involved. There were meetings. The company recognized what it had. Something patentable, something valuable, something that would save millions. And somewhere in that process, in the rooms I was increasingly not invited into, a decision was made about whose names would go on the patent. I learned the answer when the patent application was finalized. 3 inventors were listed. Robert, my manager, who had contributed enthusiasm in meetings. Charles, the senior director, who had contributed his signature and his status. And a third colleague, a man connected to Charles, who had contributed almost nothing that I could identify. Perhaps his presence at a meeting or 2. My name was not on it. The actual inventor, the person who had spent 2 years of her own time solving the problem, erased entirely. I was stunned. I went to Robert. I asked as calmly as I could manage why I wasn't listed as an inventor on my own invention. And Robert gave me the kind of answer that companies give when they are doing something indefensible and know it. He talked about how credit works at this level. He suggested that inventorship on patents was complicated and political. He told me I should be proud to have contributed to a team effort. He implied, without quite saying it, that having my name on it wasn't appropriate for someone at my level, that patents were for managers and directors, that this was simply how things worked. Every word was a lie dressed as workplace wisdom. Patent inventorship is not political. It is legal. An inventor is the person or persons who actually conceived the invention. It is, in fact, a serious legal matter. Naming the wrong inventors on a patent can actually invalidate it. But Robert was counting on me not knowing that. He was counting on me being intimidated by hierarchy, grateful for my job, unwilling to make trouble. I looked at Robert, and I smiled, and I said I understood, that I appreciated the explanation, that I was glad to have contributed. And I watched the relief on his face, the relief of a man who believes he has just gotten away with something. He had not gotten away with anything. He had simply given me time. I went home that night and I did not rage. I sat with it. And I made a decision that required understanding exactly what I was dealing with. I was dealing with something more serious than a stolen promotion or unfair credit. I was dealing with a legal document, a patent, that had been filed with false information. And that changed everything, because it meant this was not just a matter of workplace unfairness. It was a matter of law. Here is what I understood that Robert did not think I understood. A patent must name the true inventors. This is not a courtesy or a political nicety. It is a legal requirement. Deliberately naming people who did not invent something and omitting the person who did is not just unethical. It can render the entire patent invalid and unenforceable. The company, in trying to steal my credit, had potentially poisoned the very patent they wanted so badly. And I held the proof of the truth. 2 years of contemporaneous, dated documentation showing that I alone, had conceived and developed the invention. Documentation created in real time, as the work happened, long before the company was ever involved. The kind of evidence that is virtually impossible to fake and devastating to contradict. So I made my decision. I would not confront the company again directly. That had already shown me exactly how they would respond. Instead, I would do 3 things. First, I would preserve and organize my documentation completely. Every notebook, every dated file, every version history, assembled into an unambiguous record of the invention's true origin. Second, I would educate myself thoroughly on patent law and inventorship, so that I understood exactly what my rights were and exactly how serious the company's actions had been. I would consult a patent attorney, someone who dealt specifically with inventorship disputes. Third, I would decide, from a position of knowledge and strength rather than emotion, how to proceed. Whether to correct the record within the company, to pursue my legal rights, or to use what I held as leverage for something better. I gave myself no deadline. I would move carefully, because I held the strong hand, and people who hold strong hands do not need to rush. Time was on my side. The documentation wasn't going anywhere. The truth wasn't going to change. Robert thought the matter was closed. In reality, it had barely begun. And it would be decided on my terms, not his. Let me describe what I actually held, because the strength of it is the heart of this story. 2 years of documentation. Dated notebook entries showing the evolution of the idea from initial frustration to working solution. Version histories on my technical files, timestamped, sequential, showing every iteration. Notes on experiments, results, refinements. A complete narrative, in real time, of a genuine invention. Critically, all of it predated the company's involvement. The record showed unambiguously that I had conceived and developed the invention independently, over 2 years, before I ever presented it. There was no version of events in which Robert, Charles, or the third colleague could have been the true inventors, because the invention was fully developed, documented, and dated before any of them had ever heard of it. When I consulted a patent attorney and showed her what I had, her response told me everything. She explained that inventorship disputes are often difficult precisely because invention is hard to document. Most inventors don't keep careful contemporaneous records, so proving who thought of what and when becomes a murky battle of memories and assertions. My case was the opposite of murky. I had done, naturally and from the start, exactly what someone would need to do to prove inventorship beyond doubt. The dated, contemporaneous, detailed record was, in her words, about as strong as this kind of evidence ever gets. And the fact that the named inventors could not produce any comparable documentation of their own contribution, because they had made no real inventive contribution, made the company's position extraordinarily weak. She also confirmed the thing I had suspected, that deliberately misnaming inventors was not a minor matter. It went to the validity of the patent itself. The company had, in trying to cut me out, created a serious legal vulnerability in one of its own valuable assets. I now understood the full picture. I held ironclad proof that I was the true inventor. The company held a valuable patent that was potentially invalid because of what they had done, and they had no idea that I knew any of this, or that I could prove it. I was not the powerless employee Robert had smiled at. I was the person holding the one thing that could either correct a serious injustice or unravel a patent worth millions. And I got to choose which. I chose to correct the record, and to do it from a position that made the outcome inevitable. Working with my attorney, I formally raised the issue of inventorship, not as an angry employee, but as the documented true inventor, with legal representation, presenting evidence that was essentially incontrovertible. The message was clear and professional. The patent named the wrong inventors. I was the true and sole inventor. I could prove it completely, and this needed to be corrected. The company's posture changed the instant they understood what I held. Because now they were not managing a disappointed employee. They were facing a legal reality with serious consequences. If they fought me and lost, and the documentation made losing almost certain, they would not only have to correct the inventorship, they would risk the validity of the entire patent, expose their own misconduct, and face an engineer with airtight evidence that they had committed a serious impropriety. Robert's enthusiasm evaporated. Charles's status offered no protection against dated notebooks and time-stamped files. The third colleague, who had contributed nothing, had nothing to stand on. The whole structure they had built to take credit for my work collapsed the moment it met evidence. I will not detail the private resolution, but I will tell you its shape. The record was corrected to reflect the truth of who invented what. My contribution, my authorship of the innovation, was formally acknowledged in the way it should have been from the start. And I was compensated in a manner that reflected both the value of what I had created and the seriousness of what the company had attempted to do. Understandably, they preferred to make things right quietly rather than have the full story become a matter of public and legal record. I did not stay much longer. A company that would try to erase an inventor from her own invention is not a company that has earned continued loyalty, no matter how they scrambled to fix it once caught. I moved on, to a place, and eventually to work of my own, where my inventions carried my name from the start. But I left with the truth corrected, my rights vindicated, and a settlement that acknowledged my worth. And I left knowing something about myself that has served me ever since. The lesson I want to leave you with is about the quiet power of documentation, but it is really about something deeper. The power of being, consistently and by nature, a person of record. I did not outmaneuver that company through some brilliant scheme. I defeated their theft simply by having been, all along, the kind of person who keeps careful records of her own work. My habit, formed for reasons that had nothing to do with protecting myself, turned out to be the one thing that made the truth undeniable when I needed it to be. Most people who are wronged at work cannot prove it. Not because they are lying, but because they never documented the truth as it happened, and memory alone is easy to dismiss. The person who keeps records, quietly, consistently, as a matter of habit, holds a kind of power that reveals itself only when someone tries to rewrite reality. Because reality, written down as it happened, cannot be rewritten. They put 3 names on my invention. None of them mine. But I had written down the truth, day by day for 2 years, before they ever saw it. And the truth, documented in real time, was something no title, no hierarchy, and no confident lie could ever overcome. I kept the receipts. I had kept them all along, without even meaning to. And when they tried to erase me, the receipts wrote my name back onto my own work, permanently, and beyond any argument. Thank you for being here for this story. New story every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you create things at work, inventions, designs, ideas, writing, anything, let this be your reminder to keep your own honest record of what you make. Not from fear, from self-respect. Someday it may be the only thing standing between you and erasure. I will see you in the next one. Let me go deeper into this because the experience taught me things about credit, power, and protection that every person who creates anything at work should understand. First, I want to explain why companies steal credit from the people who actually do the work, because understanding the mechanism helps you see it coming. Credit theft in organizations is not usually random cruelty. It follows the flow of power. The people who take credit are almost always higher in the hierarchy than the people they take it from. And this is not coincidental. Senior people control the rooms where credit is assigned. They control the documents, the announcements, the official narratives. When something valuable is created by someone junior, there is a strong gravitational pull for the credit to flow upward, toward the people with the power to claim it, and the position to make the claim stick. The justifications are always the same, and I heard them all from Robert. This is how credit works at this level. It was a team effort. You should be proud to have contributed. These phrases are designed to do two things: to make the theft sound like normal professional practice, and to make the victim feel that objecting would be naive, selfish, or career-damaging. They weaponize your own professionalism against you. You want to be a team player, so you accept being erased in the name of the team. The defense against this is to understand that real credit and real contribution are matters of fact, not hierarchy. I invented the thing. That is a fact, documented and dated. No amount of organizational politics changes the factual reality of who conceived an invention. The company tried to substitute hierarchy for fact, to say that credit belongs to the senior people simply because they are senior. But some facts are protected by law precisely because they are so tempting to distort. Inventorship is one of them. Second, I want to talk about why documentation is the great equalizer, because this is the practical heart of what I want you to take away. In most workplace disputes, the fundamental problem for the wronged person is proof. You know you did the work. You know you had the idea. You know what was promised. But knowing is not proving, and organizations run on records, not memories. When it is your word against a manager's, against a director's, against the official narrative, your word usually loses. Not because you are wrong, but because you cannot prove you are right. Documentation inverts this completely. When you hold a contemporaneous, dated, detailed record of the truth, you are no longer relying on your word against theirs. You are holding evidence. And evidence does not care about hierarchy. A dated notebook entry does not care that the person it contradicts is a senior director. A time-stamped file does not defer to organizational rank. The record simply states what happened, when it happened, and no amount of status can argue with it. This is why I say documentation is the great equalizer. It is the one thing that lets a junior engineer defeat a company's attempt to rewrite reality. Power and hierarchy dominate in the realm of assertion and memory. But in the realm of dated, contemporaneous evidence, only the truth matters. And the truth belongs to whoever recorded it as it happened. I want to be clear that I did not document out of paranoia. And I am not advising you to work in a state of suspicion. That would be a miserable way to live. I documented because it is good practice. Because keeping records of your own work is professionally valuable in 100 ordinary ways, entirely apart from disputes. It helps you remember what you did. It helps you build on past work. It helps you demonstrate your contributions in the normal course of your career. The protection it offers in a crisis is a bonus, not the primary purpose. But that bonus can be everything. When the crisis came, my ordinary habit of good documentation became the difference between being erased and being vindicated. I did not have to scramble to reconstruct a case. The case already existed, built in real time, waiting. All I had to do was organize what I had always been keeping. Third, I want to reflect on the choice I made to correct the record rather than simply burn everything down, because I think the restraint matters. When I understood the strength of my position, that I could potentially invalidate a patent worth millions, expose serious misconduct, and do real damage to the company, I had a choice about how to use that power. I could have pursued maximum destruction. There was a version of this where I did far more harm. I chose correction over destruction. I chose to have the truth acknowledged and to be fairly compensated, rather than to salt the earth. And I want to explain why, because it is not weakness. It is strategy and it is character. Destruction would have felt satisfying for a moment, but it would have cost me. It would have made me a combatant in a war rather than a professional correcting an injustice. It would have potentially harmed colleagues who had nothing to do with the theft. And it would have defined me in my industry as someone who blew up a company, a reputation that follows you fairly or not. The satisfying explosion is usually a poor long-term investment. Correction, by contrast, achieved everything that actually mattered. The truth was restored. My work was acknowledged. I was compensated for both the value I created and the wrong I suffered. And I walked away with my reputation intact, my integrity clear, and my future unburdened by a reputation for scorched earth. I won completely, and I did it cleanly. The strongest position is not the one that does the most damage. It is the one that achieves justice while preserving your own integrity and future. I held enough power to destroy, and I chose instead to use exactly as much of it as justice required, and no more. That restraint was not weakness. It was the discipline of someone who understood that the goal was not revenge. The goal was to have the truth of my work restored, and to walk away whole. Let me close with what I understand now, working on my own terms, my inventions carrying my own name. The deepest thing this experience taught me is that erasure and truth operate on different timescales, and truth is more patient. When Robert and Charles put their names on my invention, they achieved a fast, easy victory. In an afternoon with a few signatures, they rewrote the official story. Erasure is quick. It requires only power and the willingness to lie. In the short term, it works. The document said what they wanted it to say, and I was written out. But truth plays a longer game. Because I had recorded the truth as it happened, it existed independently of their rewrite. It sat in my notebooks and my files, patient, dated, waiting. It did not need to win the afternoon. It only needed to be there when the time came to be revealed. And when it was revealed, it overturned their fast, easy victory completely. Because a lie, however confidently asserted, cannot survive contact with a contemporaneous record of the truth. This is a pattern I have come to believe runs through all of these stories of quiet documentation and eventual justice. The wrongdoers win the fast game, the immediate theft, the confident lie, the rewritten record. But the person who documented the truth wins the slow game, because the truth they preserve does not decay, does not forget, and does not defer to power. It simply waits to be shown. I want to speak directly to anyone listening who creates things at work. Engineers, designers, writers, analysts, developers, anyone whose mind produces value that others might be tempted to claim. Keep your own honest record of what you make. Not out of fear or suspicion, but out of self-respect and good practice. Date your work. Keep your drafts, your version histories, your notes. Maintain, quietly and consistently, a true account of what you created and when. Do this not because you expect to be robbed, but because you deserve to have a record of your own contributions. And because if the day ever comes when someone tries to erase you, that record will be the thing that writes you back into the truth. Most people never do this. And most people, when they are wronged, cannot prove it, and are erased, and carry the quiet bitterness of a truth they could never establish. Do not be one of them. Be the person of record. It costs almost nothing, and one day it may be worth everything. They put 3 names on my invention. None of them mine. But the truth was already written, in my own hand, dated and detailed. From a time before they had ever heard of the thing they tried to steal. They could erase my name from their document. They could not erase it from the record of reality that I had been keeping all along. And in the end, reality won, because I had taken the trouble to write it down as it happened. I kept the receipts, without even meaning to, because that is simply who I am. And when they tried to erase me, the receipts made me impossible to erase. Thank you for listening to all of it. New story every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Whatever you build, keep the record of building it. It is yours. Make sure you can always prove it. I will see you in the next one.